Yoon Do-gun serves as the chef at Laura Dining, a restaurant that has received critical acclaim. While on the job, one of his colleagues informs him about a customer's arrival. Initially, Yoon assumes that there might be an issue with the food. However, the customer remains silent and instead offers Yoon a bite of his steak. After this, the stranger adjusts Yoon's apron and comments on it. The stranger also suggests that Yoon will be seeing him often. Later, Yoon has a meeting with Laura, the owner of the restaurant, during which she expresses her desire for the establishment to be more mainstream and casual. She also shares her plans for expanding the restaurant internationally. However, Yoon disagrees with her and prefers to maintain the restaurant's basic over trendy style. At night, the same stranger is on a phone call discussing a debt he has repaid in one go. The person on the other end becomes curious about how the stranger managed to pay off the debt so quickly. The next day, the stranger, Choi Young-woo, is introduced as the new chef by Laura. Later, customers request Chef Yoon's signature dish, but he is not present at the restaurant. Nonetheless, Choi accepts the orders. When Yoon learns of this, he arrives at the restaurant. Upon arrival, Yoon immediately reprimands the staff for wearing perfume in the kitchen. Choi confesses that he is the one wearing the scent and that he did so to make a good impression. Yoon then notices that Choi has cooked his special dish, which leads to another rebuke. Choi explains that he can make it since he tasted it before. The atmosphere in the kitchen becomes tense, and Yoon scolds the other employees for staring. Yoon and Choi then have a meeting with Laura, during which she comments on their earlier altercation and urges them to be more cordial with each other. Laura reveals that Choi is a top student from a different culinary school and can help Yoon see her vision for the restaurant. She then explains her plans to make the restaurant more trendy by introducing a dish tasting contest a month from now, judged by VIP customers. If Yoon fails to win the contest, he will be replaced by Choi as the head chef. Afterwards, two chefs try to cheer Yoon up, and they even speculate that Laura gave Choi Yoon's special recipe, which is why he was able to make it so quickly. However, Yoon brushes this off. Later, Yoon tries to research Choi but cannot find any information about him. He also learns that Choi lived abroad but did not graduate from any culinary school there. The next day, Choi arrives late and brings new aprons for the chefs. After work, all the chefs have dinner together. Yoon expresses that he would like to leave, but his friends insist that he stays. Things start to get tense between Yoon and Choi. The subject of karaoke is brought up, and Choi goes first. The other chefs are in awe that he can cook and sing. Yoon blacks out. Abruptly, Yoon wakes back up, and the other chefs scatter off. Choi is confused by this. Before the other chefs leave, they warn Choi that Yoon bites. Yoon starts talking about jelly, then bites Choi's ear and passes out again. Choi piggybacks Yoon back to his place. Yoon, who is half asleep, complains about Choi and talks about jelly once again. Choi, to protect himself from bites when sleeping next to Yoon, places a surgical mask on Choi's face. The next day, Choi prepares something for Yoon's hangover, but Yoon doesn't like it and adds some additional ingredients. Choi admits that it tastes better, and they both eat. Afterward, Choi offers to give Yoon a ride to work, and Yoon reluctantly accepts. The next day, one of the chefs discusses with Yoon that Choi stole recipes from other chefs and claimed them as his own. Choi overhears the conversation, but Yoon dismisses the rumor. Yoon heads to the freezer but notices that there is a problem with the door. He places a piece of wood to keep it open. Moments later, Choi appears and accidentally knocks the wood aside when entering, causing them both to become trapped. Some time passes, and Yoon starts to get cold. Choi offers his apron to keep Yoon warm, and they start to talk about the rumor that was mentioned earlier. It is not explained how they got out. At night, Choi asks Laura why she is doing this to Yoon, to which she explains that both Yoon and her have legal rights to the recipe. The next day, Yoon is by the shore searching for ingredients. He is surprised by Choi. Together, they continue searching for ingredients, but Choi isn't able to catch anything. Yoon manages to catch an octopus and playfully chases Choi with it. This experience allows them to grow closer. After finishing their work, Choi suggests they spend some time at the beach and asks Yoon if he brought his swimsuit. They enjoy the beach together, but Choi catches Yoon staring at his body. They later have a conversation, during which Yoon expresses his love for the beach and his dream of opening a restaurant by the shore, but he can't because of the special menu. The following day, Yoon goes to the market to select ingredients, and Choi unexpectedly shows up. Choi explains that he is there to learn from Yoon when it comes to selecting ingredients. At work, Choi invites Yoon to dinner and asks if Yoon still hates him. Yoon explains that he never hated him, even in the beginning. The next day, Choi has a meeting with Laura, who offers him the head chef contract. He is hesitant but signs it anyway. Later, when Choi sees Yoon in the kitchen, he tells him that he isn't feeling well and suggests they go somewhere else. Choi takes him to an amusement park where they have the Ferris wheel to themselves. While on the ride, Yoon expresses that he's starting to enjoy spending time with Choi. They hold hands and share their first kiss together. After their ride on the Ferris wheel, Choi suggests that they shouldn't compete in the competition dish. Yoon insists on doing it because of Choi. Choi tries to explain that he has already signed the contract, but Yoon interrupts. Later, Choi meets with Laura again and asks to make the competition fair. While they discuss this, one of the chefs overhears that Choi was supposed to drive Yoon away and that the competition already has a predetermined winner, Choi. The chef also learns that Choi had not studied overseas. Choi requests that the chef not mention anything to Yoon and promises to explain everything himself. After work, Choi and Yoon are back at Choi's place. Choi gives Yoon a ceramic Ferris wheel as a gift, and Yoon is touched by this gesture. While on his way home, Yoon receives a call from Yi-jun and storms back to Choi's place. Yoon throws the gift bag containing the ceramic Ferris wheel aside. They argue, and although Choi tries to explain, Yoon is too distraught to listen. Before Yoon can leave, Choi places the gift bag back into Yoon's hand. Yoon, with tears in his eyes, allows this, then leaves. Some time passes, and Choi goes after Yoon, but all he finds is the gift bag on a park bench. The next day, Yoon doesn't show up for work and orders are piling up. Choi tries to contact Yoon, but there's no response. Later that night, Yoon arrives at the restaurant after closing time, and Choi is still there. Yoon explains that even though he hates what Choi has done, he can't deny his feelings for him. Choi confesses that his feelings for Yoon were genuine and asks for forgiveness. Choi mentions that he plans to quit and reveal the truth, but Yoon has other plans. Yoon asks Choi to show his true self, and if the others accept him, then so does he. The next day arrives. It is the day of the tasting menu. Each chef presents their dish. Choi's dish is about love, and Yoon's dish is about memories. Laura tastes the dishes and announces the winner. Unsurprisingly, it is Choi. Afterward, Yoon and Laura make peace with her decision. Choi and Yoon have a heart-to-heart conversation at Choi's place. The following day, Choi goes to the market to buy ingredients and uses what Yoon taught him about selecting the right ingredients. 3 months later, Choi is still working at Laura Dining, and everything is going well. One day, Choi receives a call from Yoon and meets him at the amusement park. They take a walk to the beach and come across a dining establishment that belongs to Yoon. Yoon offers Choi a new dish, but it does not have a name. Choi suggests calling it Maiseuwisdieo.